It was a warm summer afternoon in Texas, USA. The church bells rang as guests filled the white chapel, decorated with roses and golden ribbons. Everyone was smiling, waiting for the bride and groom to take their vows. Emily Carter, a beautiful young woman with hazel eyes and a soft smile, walked down the aisle in her white gown. Her parents, Robert and Linda Carter, were proud and emotional, watching their only daughter step into a new life. At the altar stood Michael Anderson, a charming man from a respected family. His confident posture and warm smile won the hearts of many, but deep inside, there was something mysterious in his eyes, something no one else could see. The ceremony was perfect. The vows were exchanged, rings were placed, and the priest declared them husband and wife. The applause filled the church, and everyone believed this was the beginning of a beautiful love story. But no one knew. Within a few hours, Emily's life would take a turn that no one could ever imagine. That night, after the wedding reception, Emily entered Michael's luxurious house for the first time. The mansion was huge, filled with antique furniture, old paintings, and a strange silence. It felt less like a home and more like a place hiding secrets. "Welcome home, Emily," Michael whispered, his smile strangely cold. Emily tried to ignore the feeling. She told herself, it's just the nervousness of the first night. But as the hours passed, she realized something was terribly wrong. The next morning, Emily's parents expected her to call, but the call never came. Her friends waited for her messages. Nothing arrived. Days passed. Weeks went by. Emily Carter never returned home. And no one knew why.
3 days had passed since Emily's wedding. At the Carter family house in Dallas, Texas, the atmosphere had already changed from celebration to deep worry. Linda Carter sat at the kitchen table, her eyes red from sleepless nights. She dialed Emily's number again, but all she heard was, "The number you are trying to reach is unavailable." Robert Carter paced back and forth, his frustration visible. "Michael promised to take care of her. Where is my daughter now? Why isn't she calling?" They tried reaching out to Michael, too. At first, he answered casually, saying Emily was just resting and adjusting to her new home. But soon, he stopped answering their calls as well. By the end of the week, Linda's motherly instincts screamed that something was wrong. She insisted on visiting Michael's mansion. When Robert and Linda drove to the grand Anderson estate, they were shocked. The tall iron gates were locked, and the house looked lifeless. No lights, no movement, no sound. Robert pressed the intercom button, shouting, "Michael, Emily, open the gate!" But there was only silence. Suddenly, a neighbor appeared, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Thompson, who lived across the street. She whispered nervously, "Are you looking for Emily? I haven't seen her since the night of the wedding, but I heard shouting that night, loud voices, and then silence." Linda's hands trembled. "What do you mean, shouting? Who was shouting?" Mrs. Thompson hesitated. Her eyes darted nervously at the dark mansion before she spoke. "I'm not sure, but it sounded like a fight, a woman's voice crying. Then, nothing." Robert clenched his fists, anger boiling inside. "That's it. We're going to the police." That evening, a missing person report was filed at the Dallas Police Department. Detective Mark Sullivan, a sharp-eyed officer with years of experience, took the case. "Newlywed bride missing after just 3 days," Sullivan muttered as he scanned the report. This doesn't sound like a runaway case. This sounds like something darker. The next morning, police cars arrived at the Anderson mansion with a search warrant, but when the officers entered the grand house, they found it completely empty. No Michael, no Emily, no sign of life. Just a faint smell of burnt candles and a locked room upstairs. Detective Sullivan's eyes narrowed. This isn't just a disappearance. This is the beginning of something big.
Detective Mark Sullivan stood in the dimly lit hallway of the Anderson mansion. Dust floated in the air, and the house felt more like a haunted museum than a home. Every footstep echoed as if the walls were whispering secrets. One of the officers called out, "Sir, there's a locked room upstairs, no key in sight." Sullivan climbed the creaking staircase. The door was old oak wood, its handle polished from years of use. He pressed his ear against it. Silence. Then he noticed faint scratch marks near the bottom of the door, almost like someone had desperately tried to claw their way out. "Break it open," he ordered. With a hard slam, the officers forced the door open. The smell hit them first, a mix of perfume, dust, and something metallic. Inside, the room was strangely bare, except for a single chair, an old vanity table, and a mirror cracked right through the middle. On the vanity lay a torn piece of fabric, part of a white bridal gown, Emily's gown. Linda, who had insisted on being present at the search, gasped and nearly fainted. Robert caught her before she collapsed. That's my daughter's dress. She wore it that night." Detective Sullivan carefully placed the fabric in an evidence bag. Then his eyes caught something else. On the cracked mirror, faint words written with lipstick, "Help me." The room went silent. Linda covered her mouth, trembling. "My God, she was here. She was alive." Robert's rage boiled over. "That monster Michael, what has he done to her?" But as Sullivan scanned the room, something didn't fit. There were no signs of forced entry, no blood, no footprints leading out. It was as if Emily had simply vanished. The detective's instinct screamed that Michael was hiding something. That night, Sullivan ran a background check on Michael Anderson. At first glance, Michael looked perfect. Rich family, successful business, respected name. But digging deeper, Sullivan found disturbing patterns. 3 years ago, Michael's former fiancée mysteriously disappeared weeks before their wedding. Case unsolved. 2 women he dated had filed police complaints against him for controlling behavior and violence, but later those cases were suddenly dropped. A sealed file hinted at a mental health evaluation, but the details were restricted. Sullivan leaned back in his chair, muttering to himself, "This man isn't just charming. He's dangerous." Meanwhile, in the Carter household, Linda cried herself to sleep every night, clutching Emily's childhood photo. Robert swore to himself, "I'll find her, dead or alive, and when I do, Michael will pay." But what no one knew was that miles away, hidden in a secret place, Emily was still alive, trapped, terrified, and waiting for a chance to escape. The night was silent, except for the faint sound of dripping water. A dim light bulb flickered above, revealing a narrow underground room with stone walls. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of rust and mold. On the floor sat Emily Carter, her wedding gown now torn and dirty. Her wrists were sore from the rope marks, though Michael had loosened them just enough for her to move around. She hadn't seen sunlight since her wedding night. Emily whispered to herself, her voice trembling, "Mom? Dad? Please find me?" Suddenly, the heavy metal door creaked open.
Michael stepped in, holding a tray of food. His smile was unsettling, a mix of affection and madness. "Emily, my love, you'll get used to this. The world out there doesn't deserve you. Only I do." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Michael, please, why are you doing this? You said you loved me." Michael knelt beside her, brushing her hair with his hand. "I do love you. That's why I had to keep you safe. People leave, people betray, but you'll never leave me. Not now." His words chilled her to the bone. She realized this wasn't love, it was obsession. When he left, Emily searched the small room desperately. She found nothing but a cracked bucket of water, a thin blanket, and the walls, cold, unyielding. But then her eyes caught something, a faint mark scratched into the stone. It looked like initials, L.H. Her heart raced. Could it be another woman? Someone before her? Back at the Carter house, Detective Sullivan showed Robert and Linda the report he had found. Michael had a fiancée 3 years ago. Her name was Laura Hughes. She disappeared suddenly. Police never found her body. Linda's face turned pale. "You mean Emily isn't the first?" Sullivan nodded grimly. "I'm afraid not, which means time is against us. If we don't find her soon—" He stopped, not wanting to finish the sentence. Robert slammed his fist on the table. "Then let's not waste another minute." The detective had already placed a surveillance team near the Anderson estate, hoping Michael might return. But Michael was cunning. He had moved Emily to a place no one knew. And in that hidden underground room, Emily whispered as she traced the initials on the wall with her finger. "Laura, what happened to you?" She didn't know it yet, but the answer would reveal a darkness far deeper than she could ever imagine.
Emily had stopped counting the days. In the suffocating underground room, time felt endless. Sometimes Michael would bring her food. Sometimes he wouldn't show up for hours, even days. The silence was worse than his presence. It gnawed at her sanity. But she never forgot the initials on the wall, L.H. Whoever Laura Hughes was, Emily felt a silent bond with her, a bond of survival. One night, as Michael entered with a lantern instead of the flickering bulb, Emily noticed something new. He looked different. His tie was missing, his shirt unbuttoned, his hair messy. His perfect, charming image was fading. "Why do you look at me like that?" Michael asked suddenly, his voice sharp. Emily froze. I wasn't—" He slammed the lantern on the table, the glass rattling. His eyes burned with rage. "You think I don't see it? The way you wait for rescue? The way you hope someone's coming? No one's coming, Emily. Your family, the police, they're useless. You belong here, with me." His voice cracked, and for a moment, Emily saw not confidence, but desperation. She realized Michael wasn't just cruel, he was broken. Summoning courage, Emily tried a different tactic. She softened her voice. "You don't have to keep me like this. If you love me, let me walk outside. Just once. I'll come back. I promise." Michael stared at her for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he laughed bitterly. "That's exactly what Laura said." Emily's heart stopped. "So she was here?" Michael turned, his face twisted in anger and grief. "Laura betrayed me. She promised me forever, but she tried to run. They all try to run. Do you know what happens to liars, Emily?"
Emily's stomach knotted. She whispered, "What did you do to her?" Michael's silence was louder than any answer. Meanwhile, Detective Sullivan was building his case. He had finally tracked down Laura Hughes's family. Laura's sister revealed something chilling. Laura called me the night she vanished. She said Michael was controlling her, locking doors, cutting her off from everyone. Her last words were, "If anything happens to me, it will be Michael." Sullivan clenched his fists. The puzzle pieces were coming together, but without hard evidence, Michael was untouchable. Back in the underground cell, Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She had one thought repeating in her head. If Laura tried to escape and failed, then I need to be smarter, stronger. I can't make the same mistake. As the lantern flickered, Emily whispered into the darkness, "I will get out of here, no matter what it takes." And for the first time since her disappearance, a spark of hope lit inside her.
Emily pressed her ear to the cold wall. Sometimes, when the house above was quiet, she thought she could hear faint sounds, footsteps, water pipes, maybe even voices. The underground room wasn't completely sealed. Somewhere there had to be a way out. That night, while Michael was gone, she explored every inch. Her fingers brushed over a loose stone near the corner. With effort, she pulled it free. Behind it was a small cavity, a hiding place. Inside, she found something that made her heart race. A rusty hairpin. It wasn't much, but it was something. Maybe Laura had hidden it years ago, waiting for her own chance to escape. Emily gripped it tightly, whispering, "Thank you, Laura." Meanwhile, Detective Sullivan sat in his office, poring over old case files. The similarities between Laura Hughes's disappearance and Emily's were undeniable. Same pattern, same charming fiancé, same sudden vanishing. But then he noticed something strange. A receipt tucked in Laura's file. Dated the week she went missing. It was for construction supplies, cement, bricks, metal bars, all delivered to Michael Anderson's private property outside the city. Sullivan's eyes narrowed. "A hidden place," he muttered. He immediately ordered a team to revisit the property with ground-penetrating radar. Back in the underground chamber, Emily had started testing the lock when Michael entered suddenly. She quickly hid the hairpin in her sleeve. Michael studied her carefully, his eyes suspicious. "You're quieter than usual. Plotting something?" Emily forced a tired smile. "I've accepted my fate. Fighting won't change anything, right?" Michael smirked, satisfied. "Good. That's what Laura never understood." The mention of Laura again made Emily shiver, but she kept her face calm. Michael placed a tray of food in front of her. "Eat. You'll need your strength. Tomorrow, I'm taking you somewhere special." Emily's blood ran cold. Somewhere special? What did that mean? When he left, she quickly pulled out the hairpin again. Her hands trembled as she tried to pick the lock. The old mechanism clicked once, then twice. Hope surged inside her. She was close. But before she could finish, she heard Michael's footsteps returning. She shoved the pin back into her sleeve, her heart pounding. The door creaked open. Michael leaned in with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You were thinking about running, weren't you?" Emily froze. "No." Michael stepped closer, whispering into her ear. "If you ever try, remember Laura. She thought she was clever too." Emily swallowed hard, keeping her secret hidden. But deep inside, her resolve hardened. She wasn't Laura. She would survive. And somewhere above, Detective Sullivan was getting closer. The night was stormy. Rain battered against the old Anderson estate, the thunder echoing like a warning from the heavens. Underground,
Emily sat in silence, clutching the hairpin hidden in her sleeve. She replayed Michael's words again and again. Remember Laura. She knew now with certainty. Laura never left. Laura had died here. Emily's mind raced. If Sullivan was still looking for me, if my parents hadn't given up, I just needed to stay alive long enough. Detective Sullivan's breakthrough. At dawn, Detective Sullivan stood with his team outside Michael's countryside property. They had brought ground-penetrating radar. The machine swept across the earth, sending back images of what lay beneath. One of the officers called out, "Sir, we're getting an anomaly here. Roughly 8 feet underground, large cavity, could be a room or something else." Sullivan's chest tightened. "Mark the spot. We'll get a warrant." But time was slipping away. If Emily was alive, she might not have much longer. Emily's discovery. That evening, Michael came down, holding a small box. His expression was strange, calm, almost nostalgic. "Emily, do you want to know a secret?" Emily hesitated. What secret? Michael opened the box. Inside was a locket with the picture of another young woman, Laura Hughes. "She promised me forever. She betrayed me. She tried to leave. I had no choice." Emily's mind turned. She wanted to scream, but she forced herself to stay calm. "You loved her," she said softly, trying to keep him talking. Michael nodded, tears filling his eyes. "And I love you too, Emily. But you're different, Emily. You'll understand. You'll stay." When he left the locket behind and shut the door, Emily crawled to the box. Beneath the fabric inside, she found something more, a rusted old key. Her heart nearly stopped. This could be it. The escape plan. As the storm raged outside, Emily worked on the lock with the key. Her hands shook, her breath came fast. The old mechanism resisted, then suddenly, click. The door opened an inch. Freedom was just beyond. But then she froze. Footsteps. Michael was coming back. She shoved the door closed again and hid the key. If he found out, it was over. The heavy door creaked open and Michael appeared, his face shadowed by the lantern light, his eyes narrowed. "You're pale, nervous. What are you hiding, Emily?" Emily forced a smile. "Just tired?" Michael leaned close, his voice cold. "Tomorrow we leave this place. You and I will go somewhere no one can ever find us." And with that, he locked the door again. Emily clutched the key in her hand, tears running down her face. She had one night left, one chance. Above ground, Detective Sullivan was preparing for a raid. The storm was building, and so was the final confrontation. The night was stormy. Rain battered against the old Anderson estate, the thunder echoing like a warning from the heavens. Underground, Emily sat in silence, clutching the hairpin hidden in her sleeve. She replayed Michael's words again and again. Remember Laura. She knew now with certainty. Laura never left. Laura had died here. Emily's mind raced. If Sullivan was still looking for me, if my parents hadn't given up, I just needed to stay alive long enough. Detective Sullivan's breakthrough. At dawn, Detective Sullivan stood with his team outside Michael's countryside property. They had brought ground-penetrating radar. The machine swept across the earth, sending back images of what lay beneath. One of the officers called out, "Sir, we're getting an anomaly here. Roughly 8 feet underground, large cavity, could be a room or something else." Sullivan's chest tightened. "Mark the spot. We'll get a warrant." But time was slipping away. If Emily was alive, she might not have much longer. Emily's discovery. That evening, Michael came down,
holding a small box. His expression was strange, calm, almost nostalgic. "Emily, do you want to know a secret?" Emily hesitated. What secret? Michael opened the box. Inside was a locket with the picture of another young woman, Laura Hughes. "She promised me forever. She betrayed me. She tried to leave. I had no choice." Emily's mind turned. She wanted to scream, but she forced herself to stay calm. "You loved her," she said softly, trying to keep him talking. Michael nodded, tears filling his eyes. "And I love you too, Emily. But you're different, Emily. You'll understand. You'll stay." When he left the locket behind and shut the door, Emily crawled to the box. Beneath the fabric inside, she found something more, a rusted old key. Her heart nearly stopped. This could be it. The escape plan. As the storm raged outside, Emily worked on the lock with the key. Her hands shook, her breath came fast. The old mechanism resisted, then suddenly, click. The door opened an inch. Freedom was just beyond. But then she froze. Footsteps. Michael was coming back. She shoved the door closed again and hid the key. If he found out, it was over. The heavy door creaked open and Michael appeared, his face shadowed by the lantern light, his eyes narrowed. "You're pale, nervous. What are you hiding, Emily?" Emily forced a smile. "Just tired?" Michael leaned close, his voice cold. "Tomorrow we leave this place. You and I will go somewhere no one can ever find us." And with that he locked the door again. Emily clutched the key in her hand, tears running down her face. She had one night left, one chance. Above ground, Detective Sullivan was preparing for a raid. The storm was building, and so was the final confrontation.
The last chance. The storm raged above, wind howling through the trees as if the whole world knew what was coming. Underground, Emily sat with her back against the cold wall, the rusted key pressed so tightly in her hand it dug into her skin. Tonight or never, she thought. She waited until the house above grew silent. No footsteps, no clinking of glass, no doors opening. Michael had finally gone to sleep, or so she hoped. Emily crept to the lock and slid the key inside. Her breath trembled. The metal scraped. For a terrifying moment it refused to turn. Then, click! The door swung open. Emily froze, listening. Nothing. Heart pounding, she slipped into the hallway, moving barefoot across the creaking wood. The raid. At the same time, Detective Sullivan and his team were making their move. The warrant had been signed. Police vehicles rolled through the rain, tires crunching against the muddy road toward Michael's property. Sullivan checked his weapon, jaw clenched. Please let her still be alive. The House of Horrors. Emily moved carefully through the narrow hallway. She found a staircase leading upward, dim light spilling from above. Every step groaned under her weight, and she flinched, terrified Michael would hear. At the top, she reached a locked door. The same key slid in, and with another click, it opened. What she saw made her blood run cold. The room was filled with women's belongings, shoes, jewelry, purses, photographs, all neatly arranged like trophies. On the wall hung Laura Hughes's picture, smiling in a frame. Emily's stomach twisted. He kept everything, like a shrine. Suddenly, a voice behind her said, "You shouldn't be here." She spun around. Michael stood in the doorway, his eyes wild, a knife glinting in his hand. Emily stumbled back. "Michael, please listen to me. You don't have to do this." Michael's face contorted. They always say that. Laura said the same thing, but you were supposed to be different. He lunged forward. Emily grabbed the nearest object, a picture frame, and smashed it across his face. Michael roared, blood dripping from his cheek, but he didn't fall. She bolted past him, running through the dark hallways, the thunder outside guiding her. Michael chased, his footsteps thunderous, closer and closer. The rescue. Just as Emily burst into the front room, headlights flooded through the windows. Police sirens wailed. Michael grabbed her by the wrist, yanking her back. "You're mine!" he screamed. The door crashed open. "Police! Drop the weapon!" Michael froze, knife raised. For a split second, Emily thought he might kill her anyway. But Sullivan fired. One clean shot. The knife clattered to the floor. Michael collapsed, eyes wide with rage and disbelief. Emily fell to her knees, sobbing, as Sullivan rushed to her side. "You're safe now," he said gently, pulling off his coat to wrap around her shaking shoulders. She whispered, "Laura didn't make it out, did she?" Sullivan's silence was the answer. Morning broke. The storm had passed, leaving the sky washed clean. Emily sat in the back of the ambulance, staring at the rising sun. She was alive, but scarred forever. Michael's shrine, his twisted obsession, Laura's tragic fate, they would haunt her. But she had survived where Laura could not. Detective Sullivan approached. "You're strong, Emily. Stronger than you know. And thanks to you, he'll never hurt anyone again." Emily closed her eyes, whispering a silent prayer for Laura and for herself. She had lost her freedom, her innocence, almost her life. But as the sun warmed her face, she knew one truth. She would never belong to Michael. She was free.